computer system that is included with this is XP, and it has Boardmaster loaded on it. So we're going to double click on Boardmaster. As you can see, the splash screen comes up, and it's going to ask us to turn the machine on. The bottom here is the switch to turn it on. It will go through a little self-test, and then the green light over here will come on. So it's gone through the self-test, and the green light has lit. Once that's occurred, say OK. And it goes to the main screen. What I like to do is to go to home just to make sure we're communicating. So I'll click on home, and that's it, and this is moving to the home position. I'm going to load a test file. I'm just going to say File, Import, LMD. There's a file here called Tutor. Open, and you can see it's brought up a small file to be done on the unit here. You can manipulate this diagram by these buttons up in the right hand corner here. For instance, I'm going to drag the whole diagram a little bit, so I'm going to click on that, click on the diagram, and move it over. This is your surface, work surface, so it will move on that work surface, so you could create multiple instances of this if you wanted to. It doesn't know what tool you're using, so I'm going to tell it. It doesn't really matter to start with because it's going to ask me to change it. I'm going to say Universal Cutter. Goes through a scenario of loading it into the system. Say OK. I'm going to change this to drilling plated. And remember that all of these settings may vary depending on what you're doing. This is just for the test that I'm doing now. At this point, it's ready to go. I'm going to tell it All Plus by clicking on that and Start. And when I click Start, it's going to ask me to change the tool. So I'm going to hit Start. It says Insert the tool, and I have it set for Continue after tool exchange. So if we go over to here, I'm going to show you how to change the tool. The head here, the tool is under here. A little dirty. Push down on this knob. Yeah, there we go. Push down until it's all the way down. Unscrew it. And at this point you can see up into here. It comes out, it's a little drill bit. You get another one. Okay. Now we're going to put a replacement up in here. You want to make sure that the tool is fully inserted all the way up. Otherwise, your distance of going down is going to be affected. Tighten this knob. And then pull this up again. When it's in the down mode, it's locked, and this actually is free spinning. It won't spin even though the motor is. So you need to make sure that you pull that back up. There's also a micrometer depth adjustment here and a large scale depth adjustment here. That's all covered in the manual. I'm not going to interfere with those during the test. So the tool's in, we're ready to go. You don't have to look over there, but I'm going to go tell it to continue. And here it turned the vacuum on. and it'll bring the drill up to speed. And then begin. Now it's finished with that particular drill bit. For testing purposes, I'm not going to go changing it each time. Excuse me, but the software is going to bring the head back forward to change to the next drill bit. And I go through the same process with a different drill bit. I told it to continue again as if we had changed it. And we're going through the same process again. And we're going to do this one more time. And that's the end of this phase. The next phase would be milling if we were going to do that, which we are not. You would then change it to a milling bit. You would have to change your depth accordingly, depending on how deep the milling was going, etc. And it would then continue with the same jig. I'm going to move this out of the way so you can just see the holes that it's made. So this is the circuit holes that we made according to that diagram, and you can see here I was doing some tests and milling before, and that basically shows that it's operating. The vacuum's working. It only turns on when it's supposed to and cleans off the surface. And as far as the actual operation, that's that. I would like to show you some of the connections here on the side. All of the connections that are going to the head, the X and the Y axis, are labeled. The head itself is labeled here. Motor connection here. Power in, it's 110. And back here is the communications. This is what gets attached to the PC. In the rear, you can see the vacuum hose comes down the top. There's an air line. I will have these connected properly and labeled. All of these connections I will have labeled before it goes out. And there's an air line that goes down. There's also this line which goes to the vacuum, and that's what tells the vacuum to turn on and off. The power to the vacuum also is 110, and there's a power strip mounted in the bottom of the cabinet. So all you need is the two outlets and the air supply line. The air supply to this to power the head, because the head is moved by air and motor, is about 80 psi. All the lines and fittings and everything are included with it, and there's also a few boxes of drill bits that'll be coming with it too.